So speaking about Humminbird products, I've got a Humminbird Pro staffer here. He's also a Fish Tech Solutions Pro staffer representing lots of the coolest brands you see on your tackle store walls. And he's got a bit of a history that we're going to tell you a little bit about tonight. Roderick Walmsley, welcome to the show, mate. Welcome to ABT Lockdown Live.
Yeah, mate, it's pretty good to be here.
Mate, now, we all see your social media at the moment, and you live in Gladstone, so it's all about the barras and the cool saltwater fish. But a bit of a secret from your past, mate, is you were a bit of a gun brim fisher back in the day, mate. You're only a little pipsqueak away from winning the 2007 Brim Grand Final on Lake Macquarie, mate. Tell us a little bit about how Benny Godfrey just put his nose across the line in front of you in that one.
Mate, it's actually funny you brought that up, because I was watching some of your guys' archive footage the other night, and I was, probably the same as a lot of the old competitors. We were sitting there going, wow, look at, I saw Mike Connolly come cruising past in a little side console, Simo, quite a lot of the old competitors going past, and you sort of get a bit nostalgic. And I did remember that grand final with Benny Godfrey, where we were fishing on the Swansea Bridge together, him on the right-hand pylon and me on the left. And, our bags were almost identical. And on the last day, I think previous grand finals, the 5 guys went into the last day. And on that one, because we had those tournament boats, it was only the top 4, and when it was all said and done, Benny picked me by 24 grams and ended up going on to win the boat easily, because counting from memory, Warren Carter, Cam Woodham, none of the guys that fished the flats, any of them could fall out the bag, and the bridge with those medium-sized winter fish seemed to pay off, and Benny ended up taking it out.
Oh, we won't call it a Bradbury win, because he did achieve the full bag the whole way through the tournament. But yeah, it was a win that when we looked at the grand final 10 years later, the weights were just incredibly low compared to the weights that Graham Franklin caught to win it. There were 5.5 kilo bags coming in, and that was just reflecting the quality of the spawning fish that were coming through, mate. So we do know that you've had your moments in brim fishing, and you're a South African, mate. You're like an Aussie. You're pretty versatile at doing everything, because some of the stories you've told me over the years involve catching big cob or mulloway in the surf over there, doing crazy things to catch them, just like the guys over here do.
Yeah, mate, there's some pretty cool fisheries in South Africa. Extremely large yellowfin, those cob or mulloway in the surf, the largemouth bass fishery, and even the freshwater carp scene, and all of those fisheries taught me, really good lessons about specific techniques with lures. And when I eventually came over to Australia, and I found out that just about every species in Australia eats a lure, even the things without teeth like whiting. It was like, how good is this? That everything that I'd learned or cut my teeth on in South African lure fishing, it's probably most importantly the largemouth bass. I could use that knowledge here, on the flathead, on the whiting, on the bream, on the bass, and even offshore for the snapper, spangled emperor, etc. So yeah, it was a really good, smooth transition fishing-wise for me, and the bream, yeah, as well. Quite often, once you get up to these sort of northern areas of Queensland, bream fishing is not something that's a priority. But those initial lessons learned on the bream fishing, some of that ultra light 2-pound and 3-pound stuff in the seaway rock walls in those big currents, those little lessons I learned then sort of set me up for the barra fishing up here.
Well, let's talk a bit about the barra fishing. You're in Gladstone, so Lake Awoonga is on your back door. And it's a lake where you've seen both sides of it. You have seen an Awoonga devoid of fish, and you have been through this process where the Gladstone Area Water Board have hyper-stocked it, and you have seen those year classes of fish coming through. Tell us about the best day you've had fishing on Awoonga in the new era since these new fish have come to size. Tell us about the insane fishing I expect you've had.
Oh, yeah, that I could probably single out one day straight away there. And funnily enough, generally when you talk about barra, you think about, meter 20 and, meter 15 and exceptionally large fish. But with those year classes coming through, that sort of 75 centimeter size fish was a pretty good average fish. And it wasn't last year, it was the previous year. And a good friend of mine, Jason Harwood, myself and him went down to the dam, and we just fished our way through one of the bays. And it was interesting because I'd been on the dam 2 or 3 days prior, and I caught the fish on a section of bank that had dirty water on it. There was a bit of wave action, but for some reason it wasn't a back of a bay or a point. It was just halfway down a flat bank. There was a bit of dirty water, and I probably caught 5 or 6 fish late afternoon out of that dirty water. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. I'll come back here in a couple of days. And Jace come down to my house. We went down. Anyway, cut a long story short, we rolled up at the exact same bank. The water was super clean, and I fished my way down the bank into the back of a bay, and I hadn't actually caught any fish in that bay up until this afternoon, and it was probably about 5:30, 5:45, and it was the end of September, and we rolled into this bay, and I seen a heap of fish on the side imaging on my Humminbird as I turned the boat on the electric, and I was using it's actually one of Fish Tech's lures, an Imakatsu, a live roller, which is a really shallow diver that floats head first. And I was twitching this lure through the grass, and the first cast I put in there, the fish almost pulled it right out of my hand as I was looking down at the sounder. And it started a session on dark, pretty much right on dark. And even if I was put a time frame on it, there was probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And I think we boated 21 fish, and we would have had a similar amount of bites and jump fish off it. It was pretty chaotic. We weren't netting the fish. We were just pulling the fish up to the boat, lipping them, unhooking them, and going again. And I've never seen barra fishing like that in a dam, in that there was actually barra chasing bony bream, boiling on the surface, no different to, mac tuna or longtail tuna in this tiny little bay. And I'd probably say it blew my mind in that there was that many fish. And we had a westerly change come through it was literally at 7:45, because I remember looking at my watch going, geez, we had a good session. 7:45, and it literally, like someone flicked a switch from a bite, nearly every cast or every other cast, to nothing, to dead, absolutely dead. The boat swung around on the electric, and pretty much we sat down. We each had a cold one to enjoy the rest of the evening, and then we went home. But unbelievable fishing. If you get the dam, and we're in a fortunate position in that, it's 20 minutes from my house. I can pretty much hook my boat, drive down to my shed, straight off to work, fish till just after dark, and come home, reverse the boat in, and go to bed. And so we get to see a lot of those things evolve on the dam. The temperature slowly increasing, those fish starting to get active, and we can be on the dam in those really opportune times. And that was just one of those nights where we were on the dam in the right place at the right time, and we got to experience a pretty cool session.
That's awesome, mate. Now, one of the events, and it's one of our prime events we run up there, is the Venom BARRA Australian Open. I think it's slated for early October, and fingers crossed we'll all be sweet then, and that's going to be an event that we can run as per schedule. How's the lake going to fish in early October this year? It's as long as it doesn't run over, and it looks like it's not going to, it's going to be pretty good fishing, isn't it?
I think so, Steve. You guys were very unfortunate this year. We had pretty good fishing leading up to, your Oz Open this year. And then we had that cold snap literally 3 days before the event.
And it was cold, wasn't it? It was freezing.
Oh, yeah. It was freezing. I don't think I'd had a jumper on for ages. And I actually come down to the briefing to say good day to you guys. And I had a jumper on. It was freezing. I think Adam from Tackle Warehouse had trackies and nug boots and a hoodie on or something. I can't remember. But yeah, those are the key little things that will affect it. I think you're in with a better chance in October because there's more consistency. That water is already warm. So when you guys had it in September, the water was sort of around that 23, 24 degrees, 25 degrees. It pushed up to about 26. And then we got that cold snap and it dropped back down to 22 degrees. And they don't like that sudden change. Whereas in October, the water's that little bit warmer. And when you do get a cold snap, it doesn't get quite as cold as the previous month in September. So you're in with a more consistent pattern and a consistent time frame to get more fish. And if you do get a cold snap, hopefully it wouldn't affect the dam as badly as it would in September. Yeah,
and look, when we were preparing for that event last year, you pulled me aside. You were telling me a few stories that have stuck in my mind, and one of them involves your Humminbird 360 units. And we've already talked to Sean Clancy on the show tonight about the new Mega 360, which is like 360 on steroids and the clearest stuff ever. Um, Tell me the story about barramundi and anchor ropes that you learnt with your Humminbird 360, the old version. I love this story.
Yeah, look, we can learn a lot about fish if we don't put a lure in the water, and quite often, because we have the luxury of being so close to the dam. For us, we can go out there and on my previous boat, I had the older model 360 mounted on the stern, and I used to go out there and just pull up on a spot that I'd fished previously, run the 360, and I put the anchor down. I generally most times in the dams, when I'm going to spend a prolonged period at a spot, I'll anchor. I just believe it's quieter than the electric going on. In saying that, we've had some really good sessions where the electric's blown out of the water and the barrel's still biting. But I think it's probably more our mindset than anything else. So I generally always put my anchor out, and we'd sit there with the 360 going, and sort of right on dark or on at one of those spike in the bike periods, you'd actually physically see a school of barra move in, and that may be anything from 4 to 15 to 20 fish actually move in a group into a bay, a point, a bank, and you'll see them swim around on either side of the boat. They'll go into the weed or they'll go on the outside of the boat, and they'll do a few laps. And on the first occasion that I did this, I actually went down and I was sitting there watching, and I seen a couple of fish go out the front of the boat, and they sort of went out to the outer limit of the range of the 360, and they sat there. And I thought, geez, that's strange. What would they be doing out there? And I didn't really figure it out until the second time I went there, and they did exactly the same thing. And I thought, well, the only thing that's out there is my anchor and chain, and I don't run a plonker or I run just my standard anchor gear with chain. So I would assume that chain would make a little bit of noise. And what the barra were doing was they were running out and sitting adjacent to my anchor rope. And as a tester, I had a 7-inch castake on one of my rods in the rod lock, and I thought I'll give it a crack. Made a big long cast as close as I thought I could get to the anchor, and first cast I got about 5 cranks in and caught a fish about 85 centimeters, which, whether it was fluke or actually one of those that was sitting next to the anchor, I'm calling it, for the one that was sitting there, success. And since then, I've seen them do it several times. They'll actually go out and then go and sit out. Whether there's bait fish attracted to that or they're just attracted to that noise, I don't know. But yeah, cool story, and one of those that actually happened. Yeah.
Wow, and you know what? I feel like I'm just going to have to unscrew my hydro wave now, throw it out, and just rattle some chain over the edge of the barra tool, mate. That's probably as agricultural as you need to be.
Yep.
The other story you told me back then, and it's something that stuck in my mind as well. It's something that the bass guys do a little bit, but I've never heard of a barra guy doing it. It's fishing that heavy timber with jerk baits. You have a little modification that you do to skew the odds in your favour. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we all know that a big single hook rig plastic is a pretty good way, pretty effective way to catch barra. And with the advent of stingers, you've got bits and pieces hanging off, more bits and pieces hanging off lures, and that's a good thing in that improves your chances of sticking hooks in the barra, but it also increases the chances of those bits of hooks and whatever else you've got hanging there hooking on bits of obstruction. So as in Awoonga, as with most dams, most barra dams, a lot of those fish we catch are in timber and generally on deep diving, suspending or slow floating hard bodies. So I think I've got a Rip Yamakatsu Rip Riser there, I'll hold that, and I've got a Lucky Craft Pointer there, and I'll hold that there. And those are my 2 favourite lures in the timber. And you might have noticed there on each of those lures, there's only one hook, and there's only one hook on the front of that lure. So what I do is I take the back hook off the lure. If I'm fishing recreationally and I'm not too phased, then I probably won't do it until I've been stitched up in the trees by one. But the majority of the barra you catch on hard body lures are normally on the front hook, similarly to your lipless crankbaits for the bass. So what I do is I take the back hook off. And the thinking behind that is that when that fish inhales the lure, he gets that treble in his mouth. You don't hook him on the outside of the face. He inhales the lure, you hook him in his mouth, and he can then run through those trees and go. And they 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10 times, they won't stitch you up. They'll go as far as they go, and you can bring them all the way back. It's only really when you've got that back hook on there and he's got that hook in the mouth, or he's got the back hook in his mouth and the front hook's hanging free on the outside of the face, that one of those hooks will run into a tree stump, bit of timber, or even bury in some weed. And then that's when you have issues where split rings fail, treble hooks fail because the one's stuck in. So what? Yeah, if I'm fishing a tournament, I'll do it fairly, methodically. I'll take that back hook off. And when I hook a fish, I'll generally land them. They don't seem to throw the lure as easy, but they definitely don't stitch you up in the trees as badly.
Yeah, it's a great tip, mate. And I know that this year we've got the Humminbird Bass Electric Australian Open at Lake Wyaralong, and Joey Urquhart and Charles West taught me that last year. They had their little vibration bait on. They had a single assist hook underneath, and that allowed them to fish that lure through unimaginable nasty clumps of shit. Yeah. And that lure, you could just drive it through, and it was amazing. Every bite you got, you basically hooked it. As the fish inhaled the lure, that hook would find its mark, and bang, away you go. So it's really interesting to see how the bass guys and the barra guys have evolved it to end up at the same point. You need to throw in this timber to get the fish, but you also need to be able to get either the lure or the lure and the fish out of there. So it's just everything's on steroids with barra anyway. It's always a lot more exciting.
We used to do an exact same, that comes from the largemouth bass fishing in South Africa, where we used to take, the old headens, all those, the older version rattling spots and things like that, and we would do exactly the same. We'd take both trebles off, we'd hang a single hook and face it backwards.
Yep.
And you could throw that thing in a tree and wind it through a tree, sometimes even better than a jig. And you'd show those fish something different. And because they're all inhalation feeders, they don't try and peck it. They inhale the hull. You had no issues hooking up.
Mate, you're a pro staffer for Fish Tech Solutions as well. Have you got any secret baits that you can give us a sneak peek at now, or anything coming out which is really going to light your fire that you think, man, this season is going to be off the chops?
The Biovex swim baits, the new Biovex swim baits, used in conjunction with the weight systems, the stick weight systems. I think you've actually, if I hold that up to the camera, you'll probably be able to see that. That's one got a weight on it, so it makes mucking around with your lures a lot easier. I'm a tinkerer. I'm always trying to get the best out of the lures. I like to put double split rings on. I like to do different things. Madness Vibes, I've got that same Madness Vibe there. That grip I won the Nationals on, pretty much the same color. And again, we bend them down a little bit so they can vibe better. And again, I just take the back hook off, and you can still use them really well in the timber. So I don't. There's no real kryptonite or whatever you want to call it coming out, but they're constantly getting like those Biovex swim baits. Unfortunately, we have to tell people how good they are. We can't keep it to ourselves too much, as Griffin would probably testify. But yeah, and the diversity of it. What I like to see with a lot of those lures is, like the flathead guys, embracing that glide bait, swim bait market, and the trick with the Biovex is they're a slow sinker, and then you can adjust the weight system. So they're really good on that. It's not a fast sinking lure, and you can twitch it and pause it across the flats for the flatties, give them that little bit of chance just to make up their mind whether they're going to eat it or not. The Delta Ranger rods, they're all here now. The 777 is a really great swimbait rod. It's a really a good quality rod at a good price. There's a pretty good range there, right from the light tackle, the drop shot spin rod, all the way up to that 777 heavy impoundment bait caster. There's one rod there which is a Delta 723. It's like the rod. It's like that one rod that most guys look for, that they can chuck a backpack on and go for a walk or jump in a kayak and just take one rod and still catch bass, medium barra, bream, laddies. It's a pretty good versatile rod. It took a fair bit of work to get it right. So yeah, probably this year's more, I suppose, Corona 19 is a pretty good example. It's more of a consolidation year, and really the stuff that Fish Tech have to make it better, and to educate a few of the guys out there that a lot of these lures are not just barra lures or not just bass lures. they've actually got a pretty good cross-reference across a multi-species.
Mate, that's awesome, and we're really glad how you embrace ABT's motto, who shares wins. You're a great pro staffer for both of those companies, mate, and we really appreciate you sharing the knowledge and even giving me a few tips at Awoonga last year. They didn't work, I didn't catch anything, but we appreciate you sharing the knowledge, mate, and look forward to getting up to your part of the world, fingers crossed, late September and early October, because the bream fishing in Gladstone, I know you don't really do it much, but it is exceptionally good. It's all on top water, and it's matched with Barra at the best time of the year. So let's hope that we're all unlocked by then and everyone from Australia can come and enjoy what your area has to offer.
Yeah, Steve, look, the winter bream fishery here is I'd have to go, just, get sort of really psycho and even call it epic. Like we saw, I've taken my kids fishing in winter where we've gone, fishing for grunner, and we catch a 4.5 kilo bag of bream as a bycatch, fishing for grunner, not even trying to target them. That's on large lures and large plastics, and you'll catch one bream of about 850 or 900 grams, the yellowfin, and there'll be 6 or 7 similar size just following up. So they are there. They're just very few guys that fish for them in the winter months. No different to the Gold Coast jumping pin. There is a spawning aggregation, a spawning run, and I have seen some amazingly large schools of fish, across the flats when I've been looking for other fish and caught a few on fly, just as to keep me going.
It's an awesome part of the world, mate, and thanks for joining us from there tonight. Cheers.
No worries, Steve. Good to catch.